Hello, my name's Mitchell. I am a private pilot with 72.7 hours of total time. Instrument written is complete. Hands-on instrument training is coming up. So this video is about the career transition into aviation and how entry-level jobs in the industry are invaluable. Not only has a job at the airport allowed me to stay consistent with training and kind of knowledge acquisition about the industry and flying in general, it's also provided me invaluable experiences, really cool stories, and of course the network that comes with it. For example, did you know Jimmy Buffett used to sit behind the controls of his personal Falcon 9? I happen to know that because I shared a coffee with his CFI for about 45 minutes in the captain's lounge at the FBO where I work. If you're watching this video, there's probably a 50% chance you have done your ground school through King Schools. Could you tell from the videos that Jim and Martha are extremely short, maybe 5'2"? I happen to know that they're very short because I shook their hand right before I fueled their jet. Those kinds of experiences make the whole process extremely fun, and it just gives me energy when I wake up in the morning and I'm kind of scared about the future and whether or not I can complete this kind of thing. You never know when an experience like that is going to come up that just rejuvenates you and keeps you moving forward. And so this video is about some of the options that I believe should be strongly considered if you're looking at career change. When you are early on in your career, you want to be working for experience. You don't want to be working for money. In the long term, the experience you get from your workplace is much more valuable than whether you got an extra $20,000 a year at one job versus the other. As you build that career capital and you build rare and valuable skills, a couple decades into your career, you can trade that for massive amounts of increase in salary to make up for the $10,000 to $20,000 you traded in the first decade. So in general, that's kind of the argument for getting a job at an airport, an entry-level job. I am a single guy in my mid-30s. I have a one-bedroom apartment in an expensive city. $18 an hour is not easy. It's not enjoyable, and it does make me doubt my decisions sometimes. But the fact of the matter is, I have to pay attention to the other value I receive from my job. So I get to spend 40 hours a week at the airport. While I'm at the airport, I have to do some things that I don't particularly enjoy that much, but inevitably there are going to be good experiences that I have while I'm there. I'm surrounded by F-35s flying all over the place. Got to tour 747 cockpit and talk with the maintenance team about some of the operation. Personally, for me, I'm really excited about the firefighting industry, and so got to fuel a fire boss going cross country to a contract. Got to go inside an air tanker and look at the tank and the mechanics inside. Really exciting, and that's the kind of stuff that keeps me going. So my job is at an FBO. I've worked at 2 different FBOs, different airports. But I've met a lot of people in other positions at the airport, and I think there are a variety of options. I don't know what the best option is, but I at least have some idea of what to take into consideration. So just a quick list of some ideas that come to mind. Skydiving operations. You know, obviously they're going to have a pilot and they're going to have tandem skydivers, but they need ground crew as well. If you don't have to be a skydiver to be a parachute packer, and you can make some decent money, and you get to hang out at the airport, and you get to meet tons of people that are into aviation. Skydivers love planes, and a lot of them are pilots or considering becoming a pilot. And so that's a good crew to hang out with. One company I worked for did Scenic Tours. And so we owned a fleet of maybe 7 or 8 little planes. And that's a great way to be around general aviation. It just so happened for us that whenever there was an open seat on one of the tours, the line staff was invited to ride along. And so I got to stay on the clock and go for a plane ride over some beautiful scenery and kind of, shadow the pilot in command and see what they were doing. So that's a great opportunity. I know some people that have worked at flight schools. They're going to need administrative workers at the flight school. And I mean, that's a great way to get your foot in the door as you're doing flight training. If things go well there, you can probably step right into a role as a CFI. Hard to get a job as a CFI right now. Might not be that hard if you're a competent office employee that just received their CFI. Now you can say, hey, give me a shot with some students. I've done a great job here, and I'm looking forward to being an instructor for you as well. I mentioned I work at an FBO. The FBOs are going to have a few different roles. A big one is the line staff, receiving airplanes, marshaling, taxiing, towing, parking, and then servicing the aircraft. Fueling is a big part of that. That's definitely a manual labor job. But the other side of FBOs would be kind of like a concierge role, working at the front desk and coordinating kind of like rental vehicles, hotels, and answering any questions that incoming aircraft and crews might have. And that's nice. You're not necessarily dealing with passengers, you're dealing with flight crew. So you might be talking to the company's dispatcher or flight scheduler on the phone and setting things up. And then you'll also be communicating with the pilots directly as they come into the FBO from the ramp. One position that I've been kind of curious about is the ramp staff for commercial airlines. So let's say United Airlines comes in to a terminal, they park at a gate, and then the staff on the ground is going to unload all the bags, load them up into the baggage carts, and then drive them around to the luggage corrals up front. That's an interesting job. You might get airline benefits if you get into that job. I know at least for Southwest and United at the airport where I work, those employees fly for free. Their spouses and kids fly for free, and that's a big perk. Pretty cool way to check out the industry and take advantage of that. Another good one is airport operations. So a county or municipality likely runs the airport. They're going to have a staff keeping the airport up and running. You're going to have to do runway inspections, make sure there's no foreign object debris on the ramp or on the runway. You're going to have to inspect the lighting systems regularly, making sure those are working correctly. You're going to be in charge of NOTAMs. Notice to Airmen is going to be issued by airport ops. And that's a little bit of a tougher job to get into than some of these other ones, but still it is entry level. So definitely something worth looking into. For a more kind of career-oriented option, there's a few good ones out there that come to mind. I know some A&P mechanics, airframe and power plant mechanics, and that's quite a valuable skill. Even if you wanted to be a pilot, being a certified mechanic, I think is very valuable. The mechanics I know also have their pilot's licenses and fly from time to time and consider jobs in both areas of aviation. So that's just a really nice way to be flexible. You could work as a dispatcher for a charter company, maybe. Flight operations need dispatch staff, and so that's a pretty sophisticated role where you're kind of planning a flight. You're looking at weather, you're looking at routes, you're looking at schedules, and you're putting things together, communicating with the flight crew directly, and taking on a lot of responsibility. That requires a FAA certification and some training, but it's just one step that would likely turn out an easier job outlook than trying to get your first job as a pilot or something. And so I think that could be a good thing to look into while you're getting into training and things like that. And then ATC, I'm not sure. Being a controller is a very serious career. It takes a lot of commitment, and I'm not sure how many controllers transition into being pilots, but that's definitely something that's crossed my mind. What are the downsides? Entry-level jobs at the airport, you're not going to get paid very well, and that can be tough. If you're taking a pay cut to go step into one of these roles, you're going to have to justify it some way. Yeah, I had to cut my expenses a lot. I had to cut back my grocery bill. I had to remove certain fun things from my monthly expenses because I took this job role. But I do believe it's valuable enough to make up for it. With the job, there are a ton of fun stories that come along with it, like some that I mentioned. There's plenty of stories like that, but the more valuable aspect of the job is not just those fun stories, but the actual personal connections that I make. I've got probably at least 15, if not 20 contacts of friends that are on the same path as me. And so I get to call them and ask them, like, hey, how did you land that first job? Would you help me out with a reference? Do you think, could you get me a contact for that company? Hey, I know that company you're towing banners for this year was pretty fun for you. Are you going to do that next season as well? And do you think I'd be a good fit? I'm thinking about getting my tailwheel endorsement this spring, and so I'd be eligible. What do you think? Could you hook me up? Having those friends is incredibly valuable moving forward. And also getting to know some potential flight operators where I could look into working next year. Working at the FBO, I get to fuel every plane that comes to the airport. And that means I know a lot of 135 operators and little contract operations, all sorts of things I didn't know existed before I started working at the airport. So that's been incredibly valuable getting into that. So that's a little bit about my experience and my recommendations for getting a foot in the door in the aviation industry. Definitely worth it. Can be tough at times to take that pay cut, but in the end, I believe it's going to pay off tenfold, and look forward to see how this stuff unfolds moving forward and how those connections kind of come into play as I complete these pilot ratings and start looking for other job opportunities. Thanks for checking in, watching the video. We'll see you next time.